Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
We welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, April 21st. I'm Gary Stevens. Once a month, we have a chance to chat with the two county clerks in our area. Last Friday, Peg had the opportunity to chat with Allegan County Clerk Bob Janetsky. And today is my turn to be able to chat with his counterpart in Ottawa County, Justin Roebuck. He joins us via the Zoom connection. Justin, good morning. Welcome back to Talk at the Town.
Good morning. Glad to be here, Gary.
We are going to try to keep calm and carry on as it shows behind Justin's right shoulder on the video that we are recording, and we'll have it available. We are going to try to carry on with some things going on. First of all, before we go any further, 2 weeks from yesterday, voters are going to have to go to the polls, and it's not going to be a laundry list of items, but it is, shall we say, somewhat lengthy right now that voters will have to decide, mostly school issues, I believe.
Yeah, very true. Like you say, it's not a whole lot on each individual's voter's ballot, but we do have a lot on the slate county-wide. Again, mostly school district millage renewal votes. Holland Public Schools has an issue on the ballot, as well as the Max Transit Authority. So definitely mark your calendar for May 4. You can, of course, get an absentee ballot if you're not going to be available or would prefer to vote that way as well. But yeah, pretty much the entire county has an election on May 4.
Okay. Well, I was going to. I got to go. All right, I'll go make sure I vote in, because I have to vote in GT, the place to be.
Right.
Jennison probably has, the non-homestead millage, and I forgot which. I'll have to look at it. I'll have to do. You can't. I can use. Well, now of course I don't need an excuse for absentee ballots because it's a little different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. Oh, I got to work tulip time. That was a good excuse. I can't get to the polls. I'm stuck doing tulip time. Well, let's hope that people will be able to do the votes. And then clarify one thing. Just from time to time, we need to repeat this. Because Holland is in two counties in terms of balloting, there's a couple of districts, precincts in Allegan County. The overall total votes will be accumulated by your office, even though perhaps Bob Janetsky's department will have just the two precincts listed. But if somebody wants to get the entire thing, go to myottawa.org, I assume.
Yeah, that's correct. And it is sometimes confusing on that because, in an election like this, where, as you say, the school district or the Max Authority, the majority of the districts do fall within Ottawa County. And so we definitely try to, ensure that we have the totals there for the entirety of the district. And we definitely work closely with Allegan in that way. When it comes to, state elections and so forth, quite oftentimes, the Allegan County precincts are kept separate because those are, statewide offices or offices that we don't directly coordinate. So it gets a little confusing with those cross county border cities. There's only about 6 or 7 of them in the state of Michigan, and we're lucky to have one here in Holland.
Of course, there's some school districts that do cross the lines. For example, if somebody is going to be voting in the Hamilton Community Schools situation, again, Allegan would take care of the full total, but you have the precincts, or Fruitport, again, that's Muskegon County, whereas in Granville, Kent County. So I'm just putting the examples out. 395-1450 if you have a question about elections or other things with the Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Justin Roebuck. He'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450. Are we getting to a deadline for the August primary in terms of filing for candidates? And also for some of these municipalities, if they want to put some issues before voters in August, the deadline's coming up, isn't it?
Yes, that's a great question. So I believe May 12 is the deadline for municipalities that want to place something on the ballot for this coming August election. If we have any of those issues, and we've been in touch with our municipal clerks, of course, on that. And yesterday was the candidate filing deadline for the city elections. We have 6 cities in Ottawa County, but the city election deadline was yesterday for candidates to place their name on the ballot for mostly November. And I apologize because I should have actually looked this up before jumping on the call, just wanting to see if, well, you can definitely go to our website. It's miottawa.org/elections. And I just wanted to verify we had primary in August, which is kind of important for our office. So
Yeah.
in many cases, we don't actually have a city primary. But you can check out that full candidate listing.
And to a certain, and Holland's is the wild card in this whole thing. Is a wild card, not the wild card, but is a wild card in all this, is because if there is a contested primary of 3 or more candidates, if somebody wins the primary by over 50%, you don't have the top 2 going to the general election. If they do, if you do have, somebody doesn't get half of the percent, then the top 2 has to go at it in November. So, and I got to remind people, I know I'm harping on this, we're 18 months away from the statewide election. November 2022 is 18 plus months away.
It's coming right up.
It is coming up. 395-1450, 395-1450. Let's talk a little bit about the November 2022 election. It will be the first major one statewide since the redistricting situation will come up. And there has been some issues involving that. And let me just get the right page here. The Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has filed a lawsuit with the state Supreme Court trying to push back the deadline for creating the new maps based on the census that was taken last year. The commission needs to have the maps available for 45 days of public comment starting on September 17th, but the official data is not going to be coming out until September 30th. I think there's going to have to be some changes done on that.
Yeah, very challenging this go around with the census data. We were kind of informed early in the month of, it was late February, early March by the Census Bureau that essentially that data was going to be delayed for several months. Typically, the data is released in April, and that data got pushed back pretty significantly. And so that particular lawsuit is essentially just asking the state Supreme Court for a little leniency or a grievance, I guess, because the state constitution has these very set deadlines. And of course, now with a new independent redistricting commission that is now a constitutional function, there's certainly no way that they can, retroactively meet those deadlines with the census numbers not coming out. And of course, that it does affect us at the county level as well with the reapportionment of county commission seats. And all of those things have to be entered into the voter database so that voters essentially get the correct ballot. So, if your district changes in any way, shape, or form, we have over 8 million records statewide in the qualified voter file, and all of those records have to be updated and pretty much ready to go by the election cycle. And of course, as candidates begin to file, that can be a challenge too, because you may not know where to file. So what district they're actually in.
Yeah. According to a statement from the Secretary of State's office, the litigation wants to push the deadline back to December 11th. Final maps to be approved on January 25. And I'm going to quote from this. This timeline would also ensure the Bureau of Elections has sufficient time to update the voter registration database in according with the new district lines, and that local clerks can create and provide each voter with their correct ballot. Oh, how nice. Help you guys out a little bit.
Very important, right? We want the right ballots to get into the hands of the voters for sure. And it's a huge undertaking statewide, of course, nationwide, obviously. It's not only affects us here in Michigan, but across the country. That delay in the census figures is a pretty big deal. And another challenge that we have is making sure that in many cases where primary elections are earlier, that pushes filing deadlines back earlier in a lot of other states. And so, yeah, we've got some challenges to work through.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Justin Roebuck, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450. Can we tie a nice ribbon on the November 3, 2020 election now? Can we just say it is done, it is behind us, we move forward? Or are we still going to have to deal with questions and concerns and, was everything Gary, on the up and up?
When I heard you say that the next election was 18 months away, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we haven't quite finished the last one yet. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for us, the biggest kind of wrap up that we just completed was the release of this post-election audit report that we did. Of course, we audit every election after the election, but in the wake of so many conversations, and you and I have had several, we've had some calls on this program as well, and a lot of other conversations with constituents. We just said, we need to be very upfront, very transparent with the audit process. I think there's some changes in the law that I would love to see with audits, making them fully public. We did make our post-election audits public here, but they don't statutorily have to be public. And so this report is kind of the culmination of all of that. We're putting this all out there and really want folks to just be able to see the entire process, what it looked like, some of the things that we got right, some of the areas where we need to improve. And so that, in a sense, feels like it might be close to wrapping up the 2020 election for us, but certainly encourage folks to take a look at that audit report.
And of course, unfortunately, clerks at all levels, they've got to answer questions. When clerks at other parts of the state have had issues, it's like, okay, we got an issue in this part and this part. What about Ottawa County? It's like, hey, wait a minute. We're doing all we can. We're upfront. We're transparent. Right. If they got problems on the other side of the state or in a different part of the state, talk to them. Don't talk to us. We're upfront.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, right? And certainly the quality of the election across the state matters, because we want everyone's vote to count with equal measure, right? So our votes in West Michigan need to be accurately tabulated. The votes in the east side of the state need to be accurately counted, and the voter rolls correct, and all that. So it does certainly has an effect, and it matters everywhere. But we certainly are doing our part and trying our best to, ensure accurate elections, election integrity, and open communication with our voters. I think the big thing too for me is, and we discussed this in the audit report, but we're not perfect, and elections is a human process. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the areas where we can improve, and we do that in this report as a means of saying to our residents, hey, we need to be accountable, and you need to hold us accountable, and we want to follow up on those areas of improvement and say, here's what we've done to make things stronger and better. And so that's a part of the report as well. I don't trust very many people that tell me they're perfect. Actually, I don't even like very many people. So I'm not perfect. Our elections aren't perfect, but we are certainly striving to make them stronger and better.
Let's get to a call. 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with County Clerk Justin Roebuck.
Yes, I would like to kind of talk about this here a minute about in Georgia. Now, Georgia, if I'm understanding, they gave them more time to vote, and all you have to do really is to get a driver's license, a state ID to prove who you are. So if that's the case, then why is that so hard? Why does Joe Biden and all these big people from the church and these other companies want to boycott Georgia for doing something just to prove who you are to vote? I don't understand it. Could you explain?
I appreciate the call. I don't know whether or not Justin can explain, but let's put it this way: it's another situation. Something's happened in the other part of the country this time, and you guys got to try to answer the questions. And like, wait a minute, it's not Michigan, it's not Ottawa County.
Well, thanks for that question and that call. I wish I could explain. There's a lot of things, going on nationally, of course, right now, and in the state of Michigan's no different. We have 39 bills that were introduced in the state Senate here in Michigan that cover a wide range of topics, but are kind of being billed as election reform bills. And in the state of Georgia, I think there's some good, bad, and ugly in some of the reforms that are happening there. I really do. I think it's a huge challenge to parse all that out. And I will say, honestly, I am not the expert. I've read a lot of news articles and, certainly have some colleagues. The election administration world is very small. So I know a good many folks in Georgia who I know are doing an excellent job and trying their very best. But I think that we're going to continue facing some of these battles. And my biggest thing is we got to take the politics out of running good elections. A good example is these 39 bills in the state Senate. There are some of these bills that are excellent, that we strongly support, that I support, that would make our process better. There are some that I don't believe would make our process better. But we can't writ large write off these reforms as being, all wonderful or all bad. And I think we really have to take a look, and 2020 gave us all a good opportunity to say, how can we better manage our election process, both from the voter side, from the election administrator side.
And there is by the way, a press briefing coming up at the top of the hour with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan involved, discussing what they call efforts to restrict the voting rights of Michigan citizens. And again, you don't want to paint too broad of a brush on this because, as you mentioned, some of these 39 bills are good legislation, but they tend to get buried by some of the other ones that maybe aren't as good as they should be.
I would agree with that. I think my mantra has been, what problem is this solving? We got to make sure that if we're introducing legislation, we're not trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. We're not trying to fix what isn't broken. And at the end of the day, there really needs to be a high bar. If we are making a process more difficult for voters to cast a ballot, we just got to, we need to make sure, we're responsible for that. Our legislators are responsible for that, our election administrators, and we need to know what is this fixing?
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Clerk Justin Roebuck.
Good morning. The whole mail-in thing is very frustrating to me. I have a daughter that got married 2 years ago, moved down to Georgia. We got an absentee ballot in the mail for her, which she never requested. She got one in the mail in Georgia that she never requested, and then they voted in person. So tell me, what is going on with that system? I do not understand how that happens.
Well, obviously, thanks for the question. In Michigan, our laws changed substantially in 2018, which was a voter-led initiative proposal to make absentee voting no excuse, which basically means you don't have to have a reason to vote absentee. You can vote it if you want. And that passed by over 60% of Michigan voters, passed by 60% of Ottawa County voters. But what happened in 2020 was that absentee ballot applications were mailed to every voter on the registration list. And there's a whole, there's a lot to unpack here. And I know Gary and I've had a lot of these conversations over the past year too. An application, it's really important to note, is not a ballot. You have to sign that application. The signature matching process occurs in every single one of our local jurisdictions to verify that the signature on the application matches what's on the voter file. And then a ballot gets mailed only after the application is received. And then once again, the ballot has to be signed and that goes back and is signature matched as well. So applications are not ballots. Now there are states that do mail ballots. directly. There's about 5 states in the country that do. I'm not a fan of that. I like our application process as a security measure. But it is important to note too that we do have a data issue in the state of Michigan. There are records. It is not incumbent on a voter when they move to tell their election official that they've moved. So it's really it's a huge data challenge, and it's been something we've been working on for a long time. We have an interstate compact with over 30 other states. It's called ERIC, the Electronic Information Registration Center. So in the Georgia example, and I actually don't know if Georgia is a part of this. So this is not federally mandated at all. It's just a bunch of states getting together and saying, hey, you know what? We should probably tell each other when our voters move into our states so that we can cancel these records. Super frustrating. And I think for all the things the federal government should not be involved in, probably some kind of a national system where we know where the voters are is an important piece of election security. But anyway, we have ERIC, we have this interstate compact, and it takes about 2 months for a voter record to interchange when someone registers or gets on the DMV in another state. The other thing that is encouraging to me too, and just so that you're aware, the Secretary of State, and this has been a process for many years, they check instances of what we call double voting, both within the state of Michigan and with every other state that's a part of this compact. Again, there's about 31 states, I believe. So if your daughter, I'm sure she didn't, but as an example, your daughter happened to vote an absentee ballot in Michigan and then vote a ballot in Georgia, that is a felony. And those are followed up on and investigated by the state attorney general. In fact, we're working with them on a couple of cases right now in Ottawa County. There are 2 instances of double voting, and they run these records, the system, and they verify that on the back end. So that's an important point, but there's a whole lot to unpack there in that absentee voting process.
Yeah, it's unfortunately we're out of time on that particular segment. Thank you very much for the call, and unfortunately we won't be able to take any more calls on this or other subjects. As always, Justin Roebuck, we appreciate your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town. Wish you and the family and the staff well.
Happy to be with you, Gary.
And we'll talk again next month.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you very much, Justin Roebuck on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.